Hello, Hugo, Vivian. Hello, Tom.
Hello.
Tykwer. Hello, Lana, Wachowski, Annie Wachowski.
Yes, hello.
And hi, this is Ujing, today's show's host from QQ.com. This is our guest host.
Guest host.
Yeah.
Oh, guest
and
host.
All right.
he's the very famous critics in China. The LA Times called Chinese Roger Ebert.
So you can rest Roger loves your movie.
Yeah, he did.
So first, congratulations that you guys' movie finally get to be released in China. It's really a huge success that this kind of movie can be released, imported in China. So it was the most exciting, amazing movie of last years.
Thank you.
And the most important thing is the movie directed by 3 directors. How could that happen?
Sharing the love. It's the whole film is a labor of love, you know, and probably the initial spark was that we met, we fell in love with each other, we really felt like we had a lot in common in our perspectives on films, and felt like, oh, it would be so nice to spend more time with each other. And when you're filmmakers, you usually never meet each other because you're always in your own bubble, in your own universe. You can have one dinner in 2 years and that's all you get. So we felt like, okay, the only way out of this is we do a movie together. So we were searching for this film we could do together, and there it was. The novel fell on our laps, and Cloud Atlas was there.
Yes, the perception of directors are that they're crazy and that they run around and yell at people and scream, and then they go to their trailers and hide. But we're not like that. We're sort of boring in that we're very pleasant to be around on a set, and we enjoy collaboration. And so for us, it was a natural trio.
Can I butt in with a question? I know you have 2 sets. You two work on 3 stories, and Tom works on the other 3 stories. But you share the same cast. So how do the cast manage to jump from one location or one set to another? How do you manage?
Hugo.
Do you have some kind of coordination?
No
manager?
coordination. Just run, change your makeup very quickly, and run to the next set as fast as you can. Be on time for your director.
How far is it usually?
No, we were most of the time. Actually, the film started in 2 separate locations, and so Tom's unit was in Glasgow, and I was there for 3 weeks, and these two were in Mallorca with their unit for about 3 weeks, I think. And then we all met up in Babelsberg Studios in Berlin.
We went to Germany.
You were in Saxony for a while.
Dresden, yeah.
But then finally we were all at the same studios, but one unit was often on the back lot and the other unit was inside. So there was very little physical being together. You were either on one set or the other.
But you could always walk. It was walking distance, of course.
But the good thing about these 3 is that they're incredibly well prepared, all of them, meticulous preparation, and they're very generous, giving people as human beings. And so all that work that they'd done prior to the shoot meant that the shoot could happen, and that you could have a film with 3 directors. It wouldn't happen otherwise.
Yeah, so I have read book when David Mitchell came to China half a year ago to celebrate his book published in China. It was like a mission impossible, to adapt in Chinese edition as 500 pages novel to contain 6 independent stories but connected stories into a 2-hour long feature film. It's like mission impossible. How could that happen? It must be very, very difficult for the first adaptation for the script. Yeah.
It was when you started looking. Well, the novel itself is one novel. It's not 6 different novels. Mm-hmm. It's stories that are seemingly disparate, but then because they're juxtaposed and they are often interposed, so they're actually inside each other, your mind begins to weave them into one story. So when you finish the book, you don't think about it as 6 different things. You don't think, oh, I just read 6 short stories. You read one novel, and you start your brain makes all of these connections that maybe aren't even in the novel, or you start seeing that this dynamic or this plot structure is the same in this story and in this story, or this character is very similar or connected from this story to this story. So what we did was, when we sort of started breaking the book down, we looked at all of the things that first seemed repetitive. So anything that felt like this could be told, this section of this story could be told by telling this part of one story and this part of another story, and you would get that chunk of the story told. We began seeing that you could lose things and you could drop things out and condense it and stitch it together tighter and tighter and tighter. And then the exciting thing started happening when you discovered that, oh my God, this character could be the same actor, and the idea that you watch Adam Ewing go through this long journey, and at the end he makes this moral change where he says, you know what, I'm going to become an abolitionist and fight to free the slaves. Then you could do something interesting by having Heiju Chang play by Jim Sturgis, and in a way you see the next part of the story, because that's Heiju Chang becomes essentially an abolitionist who's helping to free the slaves, but in the future. So there, in a way, you get a density that David Mitchell created in the book by just having an actor play the same role.
Yeah, that was the most fascinating part, to have the same actors playing different parts, and to basically to remind the audience that they are of one soul. Is that part of your interpretation, or was that the author's original intention? The author, David Mitchell, told you that, or this role actually is essentially that role in that story. Is that part of the interpretive scheme?
Well, there in the book, he uses this birthmark that
the birthmark
the characters share from story to story.
The movie is more about the birthmark. It's more complicated.
Well, for us, when we started examining that and deconstructing it, we sort of felt like this one poor soul, you know, is like Job. They have to continually save the universe every single time and every single lifetime that they have. So
he was like the worst luck.
Yeah, he was like, oh, again, I got to save you guys again. So we decided that when we were deconstructing the book and finding all of these things that were matching up, we would notice that characters would also match up, and you could find certain characters that you could portray a whole evolution, a whole story arc from lifetime to lifetime. And it was the birthmark then became something else in the movie than it did in the book.
For us, it became about this opportunity to change the world. It was like a phenomenological event, like the stars align, right? So this idea of like an auspicious moment. So you would say, oh, this character has a birthmark. That means that they have a chance to have an impact on the world. And the desire to connect through a longer arc came from a very long philosophical discussion when we sat down and you started wrestling with the book, and you realized that you have to come to terms with, like, David can't imagine a single future without an apocalypse. He gets to our present. He's a bit more pessimistic. He gets to the present day, and then the next story has an apocalypse between present day, and then the next story after that has, I think, 2 apocalypses
in between.
And we were like, well, we wanted to make the future a little bit more related to our time period and our consumer culture, and so the Somni storyline is more directly connected to the consequences of our present culture. But we thought it was exciting to try to portray this slightly more progressive idea that the world has gotten better, that cultures have evolved, and that the world generally leans towards a more inclusive a less fear-based, a less, fear of other, or a wall between you and everyone else that isn't like you. The universe or the history of the world has generally been about breaking those walls down. I mean, even the book itself has a stitching together of Eastern and Western points of view. And so we thought inherent in the text of David Mitchell's novel was this more progressive idea. And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to start with the very worst of us, a pure predator who just wants to attack and use all of his potential fellow human beings as a resource for their own gain. So Tom Hanks starts as the pure predator, and then watch him slowly evolve over centuries to a person who can save the world.
Well, the theme of reincarnation is kind of prominent in the movie, and as China is a mostly Buddhist country, it's very easier for us to embrace it. Do you think that will lead to the Chinese audience embracing this movie more readily vis-a-vis a Western audience?
We already feel, we experience it in the reactions we're getting here, that there's also much more ease towards that kind of structure. I mean, the structure of the film,
exactly.
The potential of reading it, a little bit according to your own disposition, a bit more secular or a bit more spiritual. I mean, there is I think several ways to approach the film. You can say, the whole idea that you were saying, that actors reappear in different shapes, that represents the idea of souls traveling through time, is one perspective. But of course you could also say they're like, Hugo's playing a genetic string, that has different reappearances in different shapes. That's a possibility too. And we feel like there is much more of an open-mindedness towards this whole idea, and to the the interconnectedness of the storytelling itself. Because if I look at recent Chinese movies, I mean, they're very fast, they're very much overlapping, they have several stories, or let's say at least locations and characters intertwined in the way that they're depicting their tale.
You probably have heard of what happened to Life of Pi, because it has basically induced a huge debate in China. Like millions of reviews online, people are discussing about the significance, different interpretations of the story, which I think is will probably take Mr. Ang Lee by surprise, because the movie did not receive that kind of reception in the United States.
No.
So
we were talking about it yesterday. That it's really it's very encouraging. For us, it's really encouraging that this kind of a film, and particularly with that kind of joyful question mark that it has at the end. So what is it's kind of there's an abstraction to the film that people do seem to really embrace and enjoy here. And elsewhere, sometimes they want it to be finite and clearly stated, whatever it is about. And I think we feel completely welcome with a certain kind of openness.
Both films actually go to the nature of what storytelling is and why we tell stories, and why we tell stories. And Cloud Atlas is very much about that, about storytelling and about things happening through time. And
but are there any road signs that you want to provide the Chinese audience about which direction they should go, other than the birthmark and the casting?
Well, I would say not only is reincarnation an aspect of the story, but the culture, Asian culture in particular, or as opposed to Western culture, looks to understand the world through a relationship to the past and the potential future. So you find a lot of stories, and your myths and things are about being connected to your ancestors, your grandparents and great-grandparents, and there is a trajectory of both your own life and the life of your culture that is shot through with understanding it through this lens of a responsibility and a connection, a connectivity to the past and your children and your potential future. The culture here thinks much more about that connectivity and that connection. in the West, it's much more about the individual life, this sort of almost like bubble-like existence that you experience as a consumer. You choose and you make your choices based on your needs or your taste or your desires, not as much through a relationship or a connection or a responsibility to your ancestors or your descendants. And so in that way I see that there may be an accessibility to the culture here that the West feels a frustration with that aspect of the story.
And if you ask for road signs, I mean, for us it always felt like it's really important that you embrace the movie more on a compositional level, that you just go with the flow. Yeah, but that you look at it as the way you experience music, that it all comes together in a way, and trust the energy that the film, I think, confronts you with from the beginning. It's all going to come together. Go with the flow, enjoy it as if it was a complex but beautiful composition, and then there will be satisfaction.
I remember in one of your interviews before with previous, you said that David Mitchell's novel like Bach's music, but the movie like orchestra or something like that. Yeah, I think you mentioned that.
Like
Yeah.
It's like Bach's music.
Bach's
Oh.
music,
Yeah, Bach.
the book, yeah, but the film is like orchestra.
Yes.
Orchestral,
So how
yeah.
many
Bach
roles?
Well, Bach is famous for, of course, intertwining. I mean,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
written many
Yeah.
sextets.
The clue is very clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many roles Hugo plays in these movies?
In
Six,
this
right?
in this film, six.
Yeah,
Yes,
six.
yes.
Six.
Yeah.
It's
If I not do the research, I probably
He's in
cannot
every
find
story.
all
recognize
heroes in the
all your
movie.
roles. Yeah.
It's
Is there
quite
favorite?
Yes, you can. You can. I think you can. I mean, every role is very significant. It's not like that. He doesn't have a cameo. He has in every six. We have 6 ages in the film, and in every one, he is kind of, he identifies.
They're all
the
all the roles
intellectual-
are.
There is a female role, right?
Yeah, there is,
There's-
but they're all
there is.
agents of repression, of control. They're all agents of control. They're all people who view the world through a particular paradigm and want to maintain a particular structure for themselves, for their own gain. And whether if that means repressing someone or enslaving someone else or killing someone else in order to maintain the system structure, then that's what they will do. But having said that, they're all conflicted in different ways. Some of them believe themselves to be a pillar of society. They wouldn't view themselves as being a villain or antagonistic, but they would see themselves as upholding all the great values of society. However, retrospectively, you can read them in a different way. But yeah, they're all controlling agents.
There is a significant Asian component, Asian cast in this movie, and you two have actually worked with many Asian actors and actresses before. This time, including Zhou Xun, who's a famous star in China, but with the past, previous projects too. Was there a different style of working with Asian actors, or is it the same everywhere? I mean, language-wise, I'm sure they probably are different, right?
Yeah, language is always an issue, but it's fun that acting often transcends language barriers very easily. You can, the person relates to the character, and you've built the character together, and then directing is a strange job. We've said that we try to just prepare so that you can give as much space and time that and make the actor feel as comfortable as you can. You want the actor to be the focus when you actually come to the set. And the Asian actors are always very well prepared. They're always, I think, beautiful to work with, and
emotionally very open as
Yes,
well.
very.
Really very present.
Yes,
There is a great presence, but that comes from meticulous preparation. I think.
they're very prepared.
Were there any cultural gaps in terms of working style, other aspects?
We're usually slower than they.
Yes.
they're
Are
usually-
you slower than they expect now?
Yeah.
Because it's such a big budget project.
No, I think it's just
No,
that we're
just
slow.
Well, not only
Not a culture again.
yeah, not only the casting, but also the subject matter and also the funding of this movie is quite international.
Yeah.
I know part of the money comes from Asian countries, including China. Do you think that's the trend for filmmaking, especially for high-profile, big-budget movies, to have stories from all over the world and actors, talents from all over the world, also money from all over the world? Is that the way to go?
I mean, you know,
Or is it just an isolated case?
it was tough to get that movie together. I mean, financially, it was really hard because, of course, you know, there's an inventive or let's say an experimental factor about it that, you know, scares, you know, the regular investors, I think. So we had to find really people who could get excited about, you know, a different way of approaching a large-scale tale, and we feel like, I mean, now looking back, it is of course the most beautiful way it could come together, because it was always, you know, it was always meant to be a global film. I mean, in its spiritual sense, and that it also has become that on a business level is a beautiful reflection of the whole idea of the concept. So that we end up, you know, now, you know, being in China and knowing that, you know, Wilson, who was one of the first who joined us from Dreams of Dragon. I mean, Dreams of Dragon, the company, really being one of the very first, saying, "I believe in this. I think this is the big movie of the future. This is what we should do." And it's really satisfying now getting here and feeling that, okay, it's also getting the response we were hoping for, because it reflects that there might be a future for these kind of films in this way of production. You know, it's hard if you just want to work with one studio in Hollywood and try to create something so unique with them. They are desperate. They're really scared of things that have that level of inventiveness. They want something that's easier to identify as a product, and this is definitely not, you know, our idea of films. You know, to create a product.
You know, in China, the most of investors is the same as in Hollywood.
Yeah, they also want the same formula.
Yeah.
Well, sure. I mean, I think it's everywhere, but
Everywhere, yeah.
you know, we need those few people who are crazy enough and wonderful enough to go along. And
It feels to me like it is a trend. I mean, you said, is it a trend? I think it is. I don't think it's the only trend. I think it is a trend in filmmaking globally. And it may be a trend that trends a little bit further and becomes more and more common and then dissipates again. But it feels like there are some quite large films being made that are being made from all parts of the world
Yes.
and in all parts of the world.
I mean,
and for different audiences around the world. And I think that's really exciting. And this film is certainly one of those films.
But the international component of this film is kind of built in, because the book has one story that's set in South Korea. But there are other movies that normally would not have an Asian angle, such as the Iron Man. But Iron Man 3 was actually in production here in Beijing for a while. It was trying to incorporate a Chinese angle. And also, Mr. Keanu Reeves, you made him famous, a world star. He was making a film here in China.
Yeah.
And so that kind of remind me that your movie actually is visionary in a way that it's ahead of the other movies. It's more international than a typical superhero.
We would have to agree with you.
Yeah.
So I want to get your
we're
point.
ahead and visionary.
It's my interpretation.
That's that's very kind interpretation. We are glad you see it the way that we feel it. We felt when we started putting it together, and we found all of these. The story was obviously global, and we wanted it. The book was global, and we wanted to try to be true to that feeling. And so we wanted a different kind of cast from all sorts of different races, because the book is dealing with otherness, and so you have to confront age otherness and race otherness and gender otherness. And so we wanted a very disparate group of stars, and then because it's so different, like Tom was saying, and so unique, it's hard for a studio to immediately say yes. So we began looking for people who just felt like we did, or like you were saying, that it felt like something worthwhile that was beyond just global exploitation of money. That was that was about a kind of a desire to transcend some of the boundaries that the book talks about.
Actually, transcend your own boundaries.
Yeah.
So you're making a leap into an unknown. You're making a leap into something which is genuinely, palpably exciting to you because it feels you haven't been there before. And that was the spirit with which everyone on this film approached this film and jumped into this film. Was the spirit
of financing,
of bravery, actually, and it was really it was exciting.
And all of the financiers who have since seen the film, and they remain as committed and in love with the movie as we are, and it's great. We feel like we're this band that got together, and all of us were courageous, actors doing things that no movie has ever asked of an actor. We couldn't think of one film that asked as much of actors as we did. And they were all so excited about it, and they were so great at it. And the same with the financiers. I don't think any film ever asked so much bravery of its financiers. And like he was saying, Dream of Dragon was there from the beginning, not because they thought this is all about money. It was also because they were excited and passionate about the subject and the ideas.
Well, I hope my next question will not offend you, because I read in American press that the casting, because you have actors playing roles of the opposite gender, so that they kind of interpreted it as a kind of transgender thing. And I would like to know whether you would, in the future, you would make a movie that's more personal to you, that's kind of focused on this issue of transgender, or the gender issue in general.
We might.
It depends on the project.
Well, I
if you
think to come up
investigate-
with a story that kind of semi-autobiographical, or something that you feel acutely.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, all of our stories really have, transcendence I prefer rather than transgendered. All of our films are really stories about transcendence.
Transcendence.
Yeah. And that starts way back with Bound. Bound was about transcending archetypal boxes,
Stereotypes.
right? Stereotypes. So I don't think any film at that point in history had ever had two gay women go off and beat the evil white men and live happily ever after.
That's you. That's the role played by you.
And that theme, we've always played with gender, we've always played with our race, has always been an important component, and our it's like Trinity and Neo. In some ways, Neo is the girl in many ways, and Trinity is the boy in many typical sort of ways. And gender has always been an issue that we explore because it's one of our most significant cultural subjects.
Very strong in V for Vendetta as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's
Very,
very
very strong.
powerful in Vendetta. There's a scene in Vendetta that's about identity that I think is one of our most explicit investigations of identity, in which they're talking. She wants to take his mask off, and he's talking about the nature of his identity not being the mask, not being what's underneath the mask, being something else that you can't see. And at the same time, they're quoting from Twelfth Night, which is again one of Shakespeare's genius plays about gender and also identity. And then
What's the music?
Anthony Hegarty of Anthony and the Johnsons is singing "I Am a Bird Girl," which is also a song about gender and identity. And it's all of these meditations on those subjects and the relationship of the interrelationship of them. So we do it.
So
all
we've
the
already
time.
done it. That's the answer.
And you'll continue.
Yeah, continue doing exploring.
Continue, yes.
Yeah. So the last question, since we're running out of time. Yeah.
No,
With no time.
we'll keep going.
Yeah, but we have time.
This is
We
a
have
good
we don't have time.
interview.
So the last question is: do you have any expectation about in terms of the film is going to release in China, in terms of the Chinese audience response?
The Chinese reception.
Well,
Well, we
Do you have any
we
impression
kind of
about
said it.
something in China?
we hope you like. I mean, we hope they like it, and we hope they. What I've always thought about our movies, particularly that separates our movies from a lot of other directors, is that we try to make movies that ask you to see a second or multiple times, that they can have things. When Tom was saying, just go and relax and don't try to keep track of everything. Don't try to force yourself to understand every connection, because we think that, like all great art, recurrent exposure to the art is where the richness comes from. You watch it again and you'll see something that you never realized before, or you'll see something that relates to your life in a way you didn't understand the first time. And that's what I think makes for great art, not just great movies. Things that you can go to a second, third, fourth, and see throughout your life. I've read Moby Dick probably 10 times in my life, and every time I read it again, I find something else in it. That's the kind of movies we try to make.
Okay, everyone, one sentence to Chinese audience. Anything you want to say? Andy first?
Me first? I don't know what to say. Go see this movie. Any question you have in your life, Cloud Atlas has the answer.
At least some of the questions.
Yes.
Lana?
Well, I don't know, that was so eloquent. Let's say that we are very grateful to our Chinese investors who were there from the very beginning, and we're hoping that the Chinese audience will be there in the same kind of way, the same kind of passionate, committed way.
Well, Tom, by the way, the music is beautiful.
so yes,
The theme, especially the theme.
Thank you. And that's all I can say. Enjoy the film as if it was a very particular, beautiful piece of music.
Yeah, I agree. To me, it's like a symphony or a polyphonic piece. Actually, it's many voices coming together as one in a thread. I say, the thing I love about this film is that it's radically exciting to me. When being a part of this film, reading this book, reading this script, making this film was really deeply and quite radically exciting to me. And viewing the film had the same effect on me as well. And I hope and I think that Chinese audiences will feel the same way and embrace this film with that sense of excitement.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for all your time.
Thanks.
So
Thank you very
that
much.
your
Thank
content will have great success in China.
Good. Thanks very much.